Okay, I feel like the drums are sounding pretty good now. The only thing I would like to change, and this, you can go for or against this. There's two trains of thoughts really on toms. Toms will sit, every time you hit a kick drum, a tom will ring. And when the tom rings, it either adds to the sound or it takes away from the sound. You may like the sound of a tom ringing, like famous songs like Rosanna by Toto back in the day. The toms would ring in that song, and it's just part of the characteristic part of the sound. Sometimes, however, the toms may ring too much and they may kind of dirty up the sound. So what I want to do is take a look at what the options are for cleaning up the toms. So I'm going to narrow this view. Let's see, I'm hold Shift Command and narrow the whole view, and then I'm just going to take let's just say the first tom for now, and let's listen to that and listen to how it rings and how it sounds with and without it. And you can make the call whether you like it. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would do it. Sometimes I don't even do it to all the toms. Sometimes if I find one tom in particular that's ringing, I will, I'll fix that tom and then I'll leave the rest of them alone. So let's take a look at the toms here. Let's say right here. There's a place right here, and I'll solo. So, there's a couple things that you could do actually. One of my preferred ways to do it, if I have the time to do it, is I'll just go through and I'll strip out the toms so that I can only hear where he actually hits the toms. And the way I would do that, there's a couple ways of doing that. I can either mute this region, and I did that by holding Command M. Of course, that is the Pro Tools-ish shortcut. This actually makes it harder to see, so I'm going to unmute that. And then what I'll do is I'm going to tab to the transient that is the tom ringing first time. So that's what I want to do. So I'll bring the cursor back, and I'm just going to tab to that transient. And then the Pro Tools-ish shortcut is Command E, and what that'll do is it'll split the region right there where the playhead is. Let's zoom out and make sure there's no other ones. It doesn't look like there's any other toms. All of those are snares, if that gives you any indication of how loud the toms can be in there, or the snares. So I'm just going to hit Command M, which will mute that region now, and now I'll go back and I want to give it plenty of time to ring out. So I'm going to tab to this next transient here. I'm going to split it again, and then that'll make this ready for me to go and find the next tom. So let's do that. Let's go find the next tom. Looks like there may be some here. No, not. Let's check. I think we just check there. I think there's one here. Yeah. So let's put the cursor here and let's tab over. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can see. I'm going to tab over to the beginning of that tom hit. I'm going to split the head or split the region, and then I'm going to mute this region. I'm going to go over here to the next logical place. And remember, see this button right here, the yellow button that pops up is the crossfade, and we'll handle those in a minute, and we'll make it really nice and neat sounding. So looks like the next one may be here. Let's see. Yeah. So let's zoom in. And this is a very tedious, or it can be a tedious way to do this, but it's actually the most accurate also. Let's see if we've got just the... Yeah, there's no toms in there, so let's mute that. Go here. Find a good place to crossfade to, which I'm thinking is there. And you may have to do this a couple of times, or figure out which one actually sounds best for this song, because depending on the tempo of the song, you may want to change your crossfade time. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, it looks like there's two kicks here, and that's what's leaking there. So let's split this region here, and then let's split it again. Let's split it again here. Mute these. Okay, so we have successfully cleaned up this tom here. So let's listen to this first one and listen. Sometimes if you just cut it on the beat like that, you'll never miss a crossfade, but since Mixbus has made it so easy for us to do that, let's take a listen to this. There's a little pop there. So what I'm going to do is just grab this crossfade region and crossfade it. This is natural as it can be. You can't make a gate. Well, I won't say you can't, but it's hard to make a gate be that accurate as far as opening and closing. Now, if you're in a tight and, you know, maybe there's a ton of these that you don't have time to do, a gate would be a good alternative. But if you have time and you have the budget to do it, this is actually one of the best ways to do it. I wouldn't recommend erasing these because you may decide that you want that sound again, and then you'll have to either stretch these out or drag it from the regions bin over here, the tom back into there, and then you'll start all over again. So I like to muting these regions. Muting these regions is the most practical thing for me. So let's that's one way of cleaning up the toms. Now there's two other toms here. Let's solo these and listen to how they are. Let's back up the song just a little bit, and you can hear just how. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to leave these open and then mute them and let you hear the difference. Actually, I think we eliminated most of the ringing of the toms by the first tom. It was the one ringing out. Of course, it is sitting. It's probably tuned the closest to the snare, so it probably would, and it's usually connected to the kick drum. So it's usually the most likely to ring. So I think we've eliminated our problems. Now that the reason I wanted to show you this is that when you do parallel compression and you compress and you really work these compressors and you really make them sit up and create a sound for you, every tiny element that didn't matter before, like toms ringing, will make a difference now. So I'm just kind of helping you to create an arsenal of things to do. Let me show you one more thing that I do, and this is one thing I use the R channel from Waves for this. I'll show you another way that I'll actually do this. Let's solo this tom here. Let's see which one's worse. Okay, let's take this tom for instance, the low tom, not making very much sound, but what I want to do, I want to show you a little trick that I use with the R channel. Let's just, there it is, mono. This is absolutely one of the most useful plugins for me. Sometimes I'll use it for snare drum, use it for kick drum, sometimes I'll use it over the SSL compressor, and I'll show you why. So what I want to do is trigger the gate open with the sound of the tom. So I want to listen. First of all, let's find a part of this low tom where he's actually playing. First try even. Okay, so I'm going to find this. I'm going to just select this region here, and we're going to go and check out our channel. Again, double click, and then what I want to do is I want to turn the gate on. I want this to turn to a gate, and then I want to listen to what's triggering the gate open. If you just leave it open, it's the whole sound itself. But what I want to do is find a small subsection of the sound that is unique to the low tom, which will probably either be the tone of the tom, that part of the tom that actually gives it the low ringing, or the sound of the stick hitting the tom. Because either one of those sounds won't allow a snare drum or a kick drum to open it. So what I want to do is change this to this peak, and then I want to find this frequency that is unique to this low tom. Okay, we're getting close to the frequency because you're actually hearing it when you're playing the low tom. That sound becomes more obvious. So let's tighten this up, the bandwidth up just a little bit. Okay, so let's try that. What we want to do is key the gate open. Okay, that doesn't seem to be working quite the way I want it to, because I can see over here that it's still, that when he's playing the kick, which I'll put it over here, I don't want this to move. Okay, now it's doing what I want it to do. See, these toms that are happening are opening the gate, but it's not opening during this part. So if I stop listening to it, I should have a gate set now, and it should come open about now. Okay, now I've got the release time a little fast, so let's slow that down just a little bit. And another thing I want to do too is notice here the EQ happens before the compressor, or the VCA or dynamics part. So what I want to do is, let's turn this gate off for temporarily, and let's EQ the tom so that it's let's find the sweet spot of that tom there. Here comes another one, it looks like. Looks like that was working, I just had a little too much in there. Actually, the tom sounds pretty good. Okay, so now let's turn this gate back on. And then we can set the floor so that it's a little more natural sounding. That's one way that I will take another tom and clean it up. I chose to do this one in the way of just stripping away what we didn't need, and then gave you another alternative to use a side-chained gate where the gate happened after the EQ, so that it would key the gate open in a more accurate manner. So now when we listen to the drums, we should hear a lot less of that rumbly sound that the drums can get. So let's go back to the top of the song and listen. We can even add a little bit more of that smack to the drums now if we wanted to. So okay, so we have successfully cleaned up the smack track, and it's adding a little more girth to the drums. Now you can back off on that tom and listen to what it does to the. Let's back off on this tom thing and listen to what it does to the smack channel. You hear that? So I actually added a little bit more of the floor to it, so it's now only lowering the sound of the toms in between by 4 dB, just a little over 4 dB. But I added it back so it would give it just a little bit of that girth from the low toms. So use this to your taste, and I think that you'll find you'll get a lot of mileage out of being able to clean up toms in another couple of ways. If you have a couple of ways, email me at over at Mixcoach, tips@mixcoach.com, and I'd love to hear what you got to say. Okay, well, it sounds like we've gotten the drums kind of sounding the way we want to. They are subject to be tweaked a little bit more, of course, because we still have a good ways to go in this mixing process, but we have checked the phase on them. We have created a smack track, or some people call it a sky hook, some people call it a spank track. I've heard it called several things, but we've created that, and we've used only the compressors in Mixbus, which I think sound great, and we've added it to the regular drums. We've also cleaned up the smack by showing you a couple ways to clean up a tom track, a noisy track. Now you can use the same principle on the snare track too. Let's just say you've got a lot of kick drum leaking in your snare track. Now it doesn't work as well because there's a lot of intricacies with a snare drum, but you can absolutely use these principles on other drums by keying them open or cleaning them up. So anyway, let's take a small break, and when we come back, let's open up the guitar tracks. Check them out, okay? We'll see you back in a minute.